Hello everyone! Today I am going to be reviewing the third studio album by Canadian-Portuguese singer Nelly Furtado. The album is titled Loose, and it was released in the US on June 20th, 2006. This is an album I've been excited to talk about, as it was the album that sort of introduced me to Nelly Furtado's music, and it was one of the albums that actually really got me into pop music in general. Around the time that it was released, Say It Right, one of the singles off of this album, was doing really well on the radio in like 2007, and that was sort of when I started really listening to pop music and broadening my musical horizons. And Say It Right, I credit as one of the songs that I remember hearing on the radio going home from school and being like, this is really good. Like, who is this girl? Like, I'm like really into this. And it's actually kind of a shame because a lot of songs like Say It Right, I don't think would do nearly as well on radio today as they did 10 years ago, just because of the landscape and nature of pop music these days has changed so much. A lot of people criticize this album because Nelly Furtado, as many people will know, is a little bit more of an indie alternative artist at heart. She's not this big pop star that she's always been like going for, that image. And her first album was so rootsy and folksy in a lot of ways, even though she always embraced pop music. And some people considered her a sellout for making her image so sexualized in some of the music and songs and videos of this record, like Promiscuous, as we all know. That song took over the radio and took over and became a pop culture phenomenon. Of course, she collaborated with Timbaland as well as Danja, his protege, for bulk of this record, and Timbaland's production is very noticeable in trying to make the sound very current, but also trend-setting. You know, this is one of the first big sort of Timbaland records that would then be repeated with other artists. This even came out before Justin Timberlake's album did that year, and you can see the influence that this kind of music has had on pop music. There's a lot of throwback sounds as well. Nelly cites artists like TLC, Queen Latifah, Britney Spears, Madonna, 90s hip-hop, and also some 80s pop sensibilities are, you know, present in the soundscape, as well as Latin music. She sings in Portuguese as well as Spanish, and it's altogether, I think it's a very actually well-structured record, and it's one of my favorite albums of hers. I think it's definitely her most iconic record, and it definitely is her most accessible and easy listening. There's not as much experimentation employed, which, you know, normally I would fault that as something that, you know, feels a little bit lazy, but I don't necessarily find it lazy. I mean, this was Nelly trying on a different hat. This was her, as the album title says, getting loose. This was a much more sort of hands-off approach to her sort of creating this music. Instead of fighting over every single little detail, she sort of just went with what flowed and what happened and did a lot of collaborations, which again, I mean, ultimately, I do like it when artists kind of try and work more on their own, craft their own sound, but she'd already done 2 albums like that with Folklore and Whoa Nelly. So Loose has a lot of tropical sounds. This album was recorded a lot in Miami, and it sort of is she describes it as a time in her life where she had just had a kid, but the kid was still so young that she felt she needed to express herself in a different way. She was a newfound mother, but she also at the same time didn't necessarily feel like, since her daughter was so young, that she would feel bad about doing in videos like Promiscuous, for example. Something she said she probably wouldn't do when her daughter was like 10 years old. So she, with this 1-year-old, she was just also at the same time kind of embracing club music and having fun. It seems like a weird thing. You'd think when you become a mother, you become hyper-focused on that, and she was. But she was also sort of feeling herself a little bit differently. She was like really kind of maturing in a different way. You know, she was like understanding and letting her inhibitions down a little bit. Nelly was finding a newfound confidence in the clubs. And I do think that it feels natural. I don't think it's a forced, manufactured image like so many people seem to think that her label was pushing. I'm sure her label was thinking, okay, Nelly, let's try and get some sales here. Let's try and make a #1, because her previous record was not very successful commercially. But I do think a lot of it was, the impetus was drawn by Nelly herself. So that's why I do not feel like this album is ingenuine. And actually, I mean, don't let songs like Promiscuous and Maneater throw you off. This album is actually quite reflective in a lot of places. It is upbeat and it is celebratory, but it is also melancholy and reflective and a little bit sad in parts. There are ballads, there are some more enigmatic songs, like All Good Things Come to an End, another single from this record, is one of my favorites. So there's a whole mixed bag coming in, and we have all these beautiful interludes that sort of take us through a fun, like late night recording session where you feel Nelly's laughter and you feel her exuberance and life pouring through. It's a colorful record, and it's also one that more fully embraces her Latin roots. Opening up, we have Afraid, which features the rapper named Attitude, and this is a Danger Timbaland beat that feels very old school hip hop, and I love that about it. There's a sort of weary, sort of feeling of being watched and uncertain that kind of carries through in the melody and Nelly's delivery, which is almost rapping, still a little bit more in the singing direction. It's very processed, I think very well produced, and speaks about being afraid of what people might say about you. She harkens it back to this sort of feeling of when she was in high school or middle school, feeling like she stood out and not feeling herself, feeling confident enough to be herself. This song stems from that insecurity, and you can feel it. So afraid, but what people might say, but it's okay because you're only human. We all make mistakes. We're all learning as we go to try and make our best of it. I love the breakdown at the end where it sounds like a group of kids are just chanting the chorus over and over. And it sort of breaks down into this fun, conversative, sort of voyeuristic listening session where, again, it feels very live, like a live recording. The energy is brought to the right level because of this song. We go into Maneater, which is definitely one of her more up-tempo electro-pop dance hits. This was one of the first songs that Furtado and Timbaland worked together for on this album. She has described this song as being very in your face and of the moment, very representative of a culture and a style. It also harkens back to music of Depeche Mode, Talking Heads, Madonna, music from the 90s and 80s, and it's very dance-oriented, meant to get you sweat on the dance floor. It's got a little bit of Beyonce in there as well, and again, the gyrating moves, I do not think that she goes nearly as explicit as some of her peers. Again, that's something I think is unfair if people are criticizing Nelly. I understand, that she's wearing crop tops and she's getting a little bit more exposed and, in the club and sensual, but she's not doing what Christina Aguilera was doing or what Britney Spears was doing. She's just, feeling herself a little bit. She feels a little bit more liberated sexually. And I don't think, especially since it's just for this few, songs that she does, although it is scattered throughout the rest of her career in pieces, there's nothing wrong with that. Promiscuous was the sort of flagship song for this record. Everyone knows it. It became a hallmark song. It taught a lot of millennials what the word promiscuous actually meant. I didn't know what the word meant either in 8th. Justin Timberlake does make a cameo in the music video along with Carrie Hilson. And this song would have fit beautifully on any Timbaland record. It would also have gone very much in the Justin Timberlake Future Sex Love Sounds sort of album very well. The production is very urban and it's very, very dance and club oriented. She wrote this song along with Attitude, Tim Clayton is his name, the rapper on the first track, and she describes how they started to kind of flirt with each other, and that helped kind of create the character that she was singing about. Again, it's not necessarily her, it's possibly her describing a version of herself that is a different, reality to her reality. It's sort of taking yourself out of yourself a little bit and just letting yourself have more fun. We have Glow, which is a Timbaland Danger song as well. Most of these are. Glow is not as memorable for me. It's very beat-driven. It's got a lot of production going on. Again, very club-oriented. The Timbaland sound, you would just imagine him rapping over this. It feels as though it needs to have a rapper incorporated. But she sort of just lets herself sort of airily glide through these lyrics without feeling too weighted in her presence. It's a little bit more about the production than it is about her voice. And she also talks about, with the songwriting on this record, feeling as though the songwriting wasn't as important as the actual energy and vibe of the music. The beats were composed first and then lyrics were put over them. And you can sort of feel how that process was played out in songs like this. Showtime is a really neat kind of R&B slow jam type song, and I find it to be really addicting. I think it suits Nelly's softer voice very beautifully when she sings. She can get a little bit nasal, but songs like Showtime, where it just sort of allows her to be soft and airy and high-pitched, It feels less forced, so the nasality of her voice doesn't come through so strongly, so it feels a little bit more relaxing and pleasant. Not to say that her voice is not pleasant. I think she's got an amazing, iconic voice. Lyrically, you know, it feels at the same time like getting ready for a night out, but also at the same time sort of decompressing, letting go and relaxing. Let's let it all hang out. And I do hear in the verses echoes of her previous records. You know, it's airy and sunny and lighthearted and endearing. Let's put on your best clothes. We've been waiting too long for this moment. I'll put on my best smile. I'm shining inside and I'm proud of our love. Every time I turn around, you say that you're not checking for love in that way, but every time I come around, you seem so ready for this. No Hay Igual is a really strong tropical dance song. It's pulsating, it's rhythmic. She sings in Spanish, but she raps in Portuguese, which I think is really interesting. No Hay Igual translates to there is no equal. And it has a lot of reggaeton influences. She was collaborating with Pharrell Williams at this point, and that's sort of where that influence came in. This was technically the lead single off of the album, although it didn't really chart as well, especially in the US. But this came even before Maneater and Promiscuous. It sort of, I think, sets the flair and cultural vibes of this record very well. And I find it addicting. I find it really fun. I love the production. It's fun and spunky and just exudes energy. You can't help but want to move to it. And I like the vocal change-ups and key changes. It kind of throws you for a loop. It makes it more interesting on the ear. And it does have influences of MIA. She was also inspired in listening to a lot of MIA at this point. So you can hear MIA's influence. Te Busque, featuring Juanes, who is a Colombian musician, is a beautiful, heartfelt Spanish ballad. The acoustic guitar is so heartfelt. It feels close to home, and this song is where we get on the heavier subject matter. This song talks about depression and Nelly's struggle with it throughout her life. There is a version where she sings in English, and then a Spanish version on the album, so you get both versions. They're spread out. Lighthearted, airy synth work and the acoustic blend really, again, harkens more to her folklore and especially her Whoa Nelly album. You can hear echoes of I'm Like a Bird in this song, but it's a lot more mournful and melancholic and minor key. And it is so beautiful. I love the bridge where she just sings about how she crawls on her knees and prays to the trees. I've been high, I've been low, I've been fast, I've been slow. I've had nowhere to go, missed the bus, missed the show. I want to look in the mirror, the picture's getting clearer. I want to be myself, but does the world really need her? I ache for this earth, I stopped going to church. See God in the trees makes me fall to my knees. My depression keeps building like a cup overfilling. My heart so rigid, I keep it in the fridge. It hurts so bad that I can't dry my eyes because they keep on refilling with the tears that I cry. The pain is real, and she feels tear-laden as she delivers this sort of rap song delivery, especially in the bridge, which is one of the highlight parts. But the whole delivery, her voice blended with Juanes, it feels like a very well-matched collaboration sonically. And I do like the slightly more down-tempo yet up-tempo mix. It just keeps you in a little bit more of a vibed-out kind of space. Definitely one of the highlights and one of the more underrated songs. There was supposed to be a music video, as this was technically a single, no, not really a single, and it never actually came to fruition, which is a real shame. Okay, so we come to Say It Right, my favorite song on this album, and one of my favorite pop songs of the 2000s. I think of it as one of the more iconic big radio hits of that decade. Say It Right was game-changing for me, but I also think for Timbaland's style of production and Danja's sort of style of production for pop music. It's a spooky, eerie, ethereal song with lots of echo and reverb and really beautiful bass and production. Timbaland's vocals are very distant and sort of ethereally coming in over Furtado's singing, which makes it feel like he's not in the same room as her. She's described the song as having a magical quality, but she's never really been able to put her finger on what that is or why it is the way it is. The lyrics to her just sort of came out, and to this day, she's not really sure exactly what the song is about, which I think is quite interesting because I am definitely very interested in the lyrics of this song above all, though the haunting, melancholic dance pop blend of that joyful, triumphant dance pop chorus with that, you know, eerie production is just such a unique and memorable blend that I will always fall in love with. I think her voice is very well, suited towards this style of music. Her register and her tone sound very good in a sort of choral setting as they are here, where the voice is sort of coming at you at all directions and echoed out into almost what would be a choir effect. In the day, in the night, say it right, say it all. You either got it or you don't. You either stand or you fall. When your will is broken, when it slips from your hand, when there's no time for joking, there's a hole in the plan. Life doesn't always go as you believe it will. You have to be there. Whether you're broken or whole, your importance, your mission on this earth is to be you. That's what I'm getting from the message of all of these songs. The song deals with impermanence and how things break and fall apart, how unsure everything can be about your destiny and about why you're here. There's that existential query that kind of overtones everything about it. You don't mean nothing at all to me, but you got what it takes to set me free. This is probably one of the most enigmatic lyrics. I mean, what does that mean? If you don't mean anything to me, then why is it that I find everything about you what makes me want to set myself free? Is it that at the time I didn't think you meant anything to me and now I realize how powerful you are? Or is this sort of just embracing the duality of how things can come in packages we never expected? At once, I can love and hate you at the same time, and I can understand and at the same time not understand what it is you mean to me. It's a very abstract dynamic. And it has a religious undertone, but it's not too dogmatic. It's just spiritual. From my hands, I could give you something that I made. From my mouth, I could sing you another bridge that I made. I love that lyric. From my body, I could show you a place God knows. You should know the space is holy. Do you really want to go? And that's, of course, beckoning, if you're letting someone in, that vulnerability of this is my temple and I'm willing to share it with you, but you are, I don't know if you're going to like it. Are you going to, desecrate me? I'm a little afraid to open myself up to someone. I can give you this if you want, but you have to respect me. You have to understand the sort of holy communion that we are participating in. All of these analogies make it a lofty sort of description of two people slowly falling in love with each other, but there's so much trepidation. Say it right. Don't get it wrong. That's overall what I'm getting from this song, but it's just taken to a lofty sort of existential playing field. It's very, very interesting. It's just a song that will always stand out in my memory as iconic and I will always love to listen to just because of the vibes and the feels and emotions it conjures up. Definitely deserved all the success that it achieved on the radio and Billboard. So Do It was another single off of this album, was one of the last singles in the US to be released. Personally, I don't find this song as strong. It is a little bit more Gwen Stefani. I feel like this song would have fit beautifully on her Love Angel Music Baby album. It just has that spunk and flair to it. Timbaland actually got into some legal trouble because of a sample that he inadvertently used from a Finnish musician, where he really got, in some hot trouble for that. I think the case was settled and everything, but there was some plagiarized synth line sampling going on. The music video is really cute. It's a little bit more of a girl power, have fun, explore your sexuality type vibe. Very Jennifer Lopez. And like I said, also Gwen Stefani, a little bit celebratory. I do love this sort of synth breakdown towards the core, towards the bridge, where it's just sort of these airy vocals and these nice keyboard synths. It gives it girly, but also a Latin feel. I get the same vibe from so many of these songs, and that's why this album feels a lot like, a woman who's wearing tropical prints and has a beautiful jewelry on, and you know what I mean? Like she's just spiritual, but she's like liberated and she's fun and airy and she's just having fun at the club and also on the beach and being in this tropical setting. I just get that vibe from all of the characters that these songs try to conjure up. It's a very bubblegum song. I mean, you can almost hear as she delivers, do it like you do it to me, spark it up. It's got that accented lip pucker. In God's Hands is another very emotional, soft, introspective moment on this record. This was a European single. Do It was a US single to kind of close out this album. And it's just so beautiful. Her singing a piano with then some just nice keyboard synth layers going on. It's very simple in melody, but it's endearing and it's heartfelt. Speaking about the end of a relationship. I looked at your face, I saw all the love that had died. I saw that we had forgotten to take the time. We forgot about love, faith, trust. We forgot about us. Now our love's floating out the window. Our love's floating out the back door. Our love's floating up in the sky in heaven where it began, back in God's hands. The lyrics are a little bit more at face value. This is where love comes and goes. It all starts with God, or our understanding of God. And we have to trust that, it may seem so unfair that our love died the way it did, but it all was meant to be. And I'm sort of just finding solace and I'm comforting my heart and singing these lyrics and writing this song. It was all meant to be the coming together and also the falling apart, because it often can feel like a cruel joke how relationships end. It's a very melancholic subject to constantly think about and sing about. Something we wish never happened, but it does. Wait for You, again, a little bit more of an up-tempo urban song. It's just fun, it's celebratory. It has those sort of Eastern flutes that just give it that sort of lilting quality. It's a little bouncy. The production is a little bit all over the place. It's got urban elements. It's got some of that, like I said, Latin element inspired. It's got some classic Nelly sound. But ultimately, it's not my favorite, but it definitely kind of ends the album on a little bit more of a positive note, especially since In God's Hands is so reflective and mournful. But then we do fully end this album with the beautiful closer, All Good Things Come to an End. One of the more abstract songs on this record, and the music video is equally abstract and beautiful. This song was also written along with Timbaland by Chris Martin, and Chris Martin's vocals were originally going to be actually featured on this song, but it ended up not making the cut. It does have a bit of a Coldplay sound to it. I could hear Coldplay's influence now that I know that. It's very mellow, and I like that about it. It's very not radio friendly, and yet it somehow managed to get on the radio. I think some people, after listening to Promiscuous, were like, this is such a downer. This is so not like fun to listen to. But I think it's very fun. I think it's very beautifully composed. It's a very crepuscular song. It speaks about twilight and the ending of a beautiful day and the coming of night. And it does echo Say It Right's sentiment of that sort of haunting existential undertone that kind of pervades both of these songs. The strongest lyrics are in this song. Flames to dust, lovers to friends, why do all good things come to an end? Traveling, I only stop at exits, wondering if I'll stay young and restless, living this way, I stress less. I want to pull away when the dream dies, the pain sets in and I don't cry. I only feel gravity and I wonder why. Well, the dogs were whistling a new tune, barking at the new moon, hoping it would come soon so that they could die. It's very dark and depressing, and you think about it. A Young and Restless, I think, summarizes the sort of attitude. There is a very sort of restless yearning and longing to her delivery of this song. That unsure vocal delivery that's kind of oddly syncopated as it goes from line to line within these stanzas. But really, life is dandy. We are what we don't see. Missed everything, daydreaming. Life is beautiful, but it's so painful at the same time. And understanding and accepting that pain is the only way that the transience of it is bearable. Yes, unfortunately, all good things do come to an end. It's one of the most saddest realities I think that we face on this planet. And understanding that, it's something I don't think anyone fully, I mean, maybe some Tibetan monks, I don't know. It's something it's very hard to come to terms with, because a lot of people believe that to achieve true happiness is to fully understand this and to be okay with it. But the impermanence of reality is something that will always break our hearts. And how do we break that cycle? How do we let ourselves be numb to it? Well, is that actually really possible? And we're meant to feel everything for better or for worse. So in some ways, let it all happen, you know? I'm not going to shut myself off to the pain. I'm going to accept that, yes, there's going to be a lot of painful goodbyes, a lot of endings. But within that is this cycle, and the new moon, she sings about it, there's always a new day coming after the night. There's a cycle of even life and death. flames to dust, lovers to friends. These things cycle through, and it's a painful, sort of mournful story, but it's also so beautiful and tragic. That's what I'm getting from it. It's a very Nelly Furtado introspective, beautifully penned song that I think fits beautifully in the scope of this record and in her discography, with some of her most poetic lyrics that harken back to her earlier music. Let me know what you think about this record in the comments. I think it's it's an iconic record that was one of the best-selling albums of the 2000s, but now I do feel like it's very slept on and underrated, especially a lot of these other songs. Although Say It Right, like I said, you can still hear on the radio. It's a very popular song, but it's one of those rare moments where something so beautiful and I think ethereal and magical, delivered by a female artist, actually made it into the mainstream in such a big way. And I don't know why it happened, but I'm happy it did. Probably because of Timbaland. But you know what? This is one of the better Timbaland collaborations I've ever heard. This made me think Timbaland is a producer to be reckoned with. I mean, there's a reason why he's worked with some of the best in the industry. He is a phenomenal producer, and there is a subtlety to his production that doesn't always have to be so over the top. And I think he, really does craft some amazingly produced songs on this record. I hope you enjoyed this review. I have reviewed Nelly Furtado's latest record, The Ride, so I will link in the description my review to that. And I do plan on covering Nelly more on this channel. I do plan on going through all of her other albums. The next album I'm probably going to review of hers is The Spirit Indestructible from 2012. Stay tuned for that. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more of that. And thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Bye.